Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just talking about, staying hydrated.
Hmm.
We're really embarking on a fascinating exploration into the world of natural mineral waters.
That's right.
Forget about your regular tap water for a moment because we're about to uncover some, well, surprising properties and potential health advantages that might be locked inside those bottles you see everywhere.
Absolutely. While we often just think of water as HEO, simple as that, natural mineral waters are fundamentally different.
How so?
They originate deep underground, you see, in aquifers and reservoirs.
Mm.
And as they journey through all these geological layers, they accumulate a unique cocktail of minerals, trace elements too.
Ah, so it's that journey that makes them distinct from typical drinking water.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah.
So, for someone just grabbing a bottle off the shelf, what's the key difference they should really understand?
Well, standard drinking water, whether it's treated tap water or something else, it's primarily for general consumption, right? Food prep, hydration.
Sir.
Natural mineral waters, though, they have to meet a really specific set of criteria. They must be naturally pure at their source
Okay, purity at the source.
and remain pure throughout the bottling process. Critically, they also boast a stable and characteristic mineral composition.
Stable, meaning it doesn't fluctuate much.
Exactly. And in some cases, they've actually demonstrated specific health benefits through
Yeah.
research.
And I know there are different rules depending on where you are in the world, aren't there?
Definitely. In Europe, there's the 2009-54 EC directive, which sets out these strict guidelines.
Okay.
In the U.S., the FDA defines natural mineral water as water containing at least 250 parts per million of total dissolved solids TDS.
TDS,
And
right?
it has to come from a protected underground source.
Yeah.
So right from the start, that mineral content is a major defining factor.
It's amazing when you think about it. I mean, every supermarket is just packed with these bottles. It's clearly a massive global trend.
It is indeed. Consumption has surged worldwide in recent years. Now, we know that many of you listening might have some questions.
Yeah.
Questions about bottled water in general. Concerns about things like, plastic leaching into the water or maybe potential endocrine disruptors.
Absolutely. Those concerns are definitely out there. We hear about them.
And they are things to consider, for sure. But for this deep dive, our focus is really shifting towards the inherent health characteristics of these natural mineral waters themselves.
Got it. So the water's intrinsic properties.
Yes, we want to extract the most important knowledge about how they're categorized, based on what minerals they actually contain and what the scientific research suggests about the health impacts of these various types.
So it's clearly not as simple as just finding a spring somewhere and bottling it up. What does it really take for water to get that official natural mineral water stamp of approval?
You've hit on a key point there. The classification process is quite comprehensive. It starts with thorough geological and hydrological assessment.
Looking at the rocks in the water flow?
Exactly. Examining the surrounding terrain, the underground formations. Then after that, there are detailed physical, chemical, and physicochemical analyses.
To figure out exactly what's in it?
Precisely. Identifying the mineral composition, the temperature, pH levels, other characteristics, and of course, very stringent microbiological testing is essential
To make sure it's clean.
to ensure the water is free of harmful bacteria. Microbiologically wholesome, as they say.
Makes perfect sense. You need to ensure that purity and consistency you mentioned.
Exactly. And to truly validate those healthy properties we touched on earlier, clinical research is often necessary.
Ah, so not just claims.
No, these aren't just marketing slogans. There needs to be scientific evidence, often from long-term studies, to actually back them up.
Okay, so we understand what qualifies a water as natural mineral water. Now, how do they further break these down? Because mineral content still feels like a pretty broad term.
It is broad. One of the primary ways they classify them is by looking at the fixed residue at 180 degrees C.
Fixed residue. Sounds technical.
It does, but think of it like boiling down soup, maybe. The solid bits left at the bottom. That's kind of similar to the fixed residue in mineral water.
Ah.
It's essentially the total amount of dissolved mineral salts that remain after you evaporate a liter of water and then heat that residue to 180 degrees Celsius.
Got it. So basically the non-water stuff left behind after heating.
Exactly. And based on this fixed residue, they're generally classified into four main categories.
Okay, what are they?
First, you have very low mineral content waters.
Mm-hmm.
These contain less than 50 milligrams per liter of this residue.
Very low. Okay.
Then there are low mineral content waters, ranging from 50 up to 500 milligel.
All right.
Next up are medium mineral content waters between 500 and 1500 milligl.
Getting higher.
And finally, rich mineral content waters, which have over 1500 milligl.
Wow, that's a huge spectrum. So a rich mineral water is, significantly more concentrated in minerals than a very low one.
Absolutely. And here's a really crucial difference compared to tap water.
Yeah.
While regular drinking water often has regulations setting upper and sometimes lower limits for this fixed residue.
Right, to make sure it's suitable for everyone.
Natural mineral waters legally have no such restrictions. They can naturally be very low or exceptionally high in mineral content.
So the range is just much wider by nature.
Exactly. So depending on whether you're looking for just a gentle hydration boost or perhaps a significant mineral contribution to your diet, you can now see how vastly different these waters can be.
That's really interesting. So beyond just the total quantity of minerals, are there other physical traits they use for classification?
Yes, indeed. They can also be classified by their pH level, indicating whether they're acidic, so below pH 7, or alkaline, above pH 7.
Acidic or alkaline, okay.
The temperature at the source is another classifying factor. You get categories like cold, hypothermal, mesothermal, and hyperthermal as the temperature increases.
Hyperthermal, like hot springs. I remember visiting one.
Exactly like hot springs.
Ah.
And lastly, hardness. That reflects the concentration of minerals like calcium and magnesium.
Hard water versus soft water.
Right. It's used to classify waters from very soft to very hard based on their calcium carbonate content, essentially.
So it's not just about how much mineral is present in total, but also the water's own inherent nature, its acidity, its warmth, its specific mineral makeup.
Precisely. And when we start talking about the effects of these mineral waters, it often boils down to the specific minerals they provide and, importantly, how they're transported within the body.
Right.
Minerals, as we know, are these vital inorganic compounds,
Yeah.
essential for a huge range of biological processes.
Like keeping our bones strong, helping our nervous system function.
It's
really fundamental stuff, right?
Exactly that, from mineralizing bones and teeth to regulating fluid balance, activating metabolic pathways. The list is really extensive.
And our bodies can't make these minerals, can they?
Nope. We rely entirely on intake from our diet food and, importantly, from the water we drink.
And you mentioned something earlier that struck me, that the minerals in water might be absorbed more easily. Why is that the case?
Yes, that's a fascinating point. In water, minerals often exist as free ions.
Free ions.
Yeah, they're not bound up with complex organic molecules like they often are in food.
Okay.
And this free ionic form often makes them more bioavailable.
Bioavailable, meaning our bodies can absorb and actually utilize them more readily.
That's the idea. So it's not just if the mineral is present, but how easily our bodies can actually use it.
That's a really significant point. So we could potentially be getting a more sort of direct delivery of certain minerals from water compared to maybe eating food containing them?
In some cases, yes, the evidence suggests that. And to illustrate this point, Table 3 in our source material gives a great overview.
What's in the table?
It lists key macronutrients often found in mineral waters, things like calcium, magnesium, sodium, and also micronutrients like iron, fluoride, zinc. And it outlines their crucial roles in the body.
So it really highlights the potential benefits that go beyond just, wetting your whistle.
Absolutely. It underscores that potential.
Yep. Okay, so we've covered the general classifications by total minerals, pH, temperature, hardness. Now let's dive into the specifics. I saw something about European legislation classifying waters by their predominant mineral content. How does that work?
Yes, that 2009-54 EC directive provides a really useful framework. It categorizes mineral waters based on the concentration of particular specific minerals. It sets minimum thresholds.
Okay, threshold. Lay it on us. What are the main categories based on these predominant minerals?
Well, first you have water with bicarbonate. That's if it contains more than 600 milligrams per liter of bicarbonate.
600. Okay, that sounds like quite a bit.
It is. Then there's water with sulfate, if the sulfate content exceeds 200 milligil.
200 for sulfate.
And water with chloride also needs to be above 200 milligil of chloride.
Okay, so bicarbonate, sulfate, chloride. What else?
The classification continues with water with calcium that requires over 150 milligil of calcium.
Calcium 150, got it.
And water with magnesium needs more than 50 milligil of magnesium.
50 for magnesium.
For water with fluoride, the threshold is much lower, just needing to be above 1 milligil.
Only one.
Yes, but it's important to note here, if the fluoride content is higher than 1.5 milligil, the label must state it's considered unsuitable for regular consumption by infants and children under 7.
Good to know for parents out there, definitely.
Absolutely. There's also acid water, sometimes called naturally carbonated,
Hmm.
which has a free carbon dioxide content greater than 250 milligel, gives it that characteristic fizz.
The sparkling stuff.
Right. And finally, water with sodium needs to have over 200 milligel of sodium.
Okay.
Interestingly, on the flip side, if a water has less than 20 milligel of sodium, the label can actually state it's indicated for a low sodium diet.
Oh, that's a really helpful label for people who are keeping an eye on their sodium intake.
It is.
So this classification based on the dominant minerals really starts to give us a much clearer idea of what different mineral waters might actually do in the body, potentially.
Exactly. And that brings us neatly to the really interesting part, the potential health effects that research has linked to these different types. Table 4 in our source material touches upon many of these.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with those bicarbonate mineral waters.
Yeah.
You said over 600 milligel. What are they typically associated with in terms of health?
Bicarbonate waters are often alkaline, naturally,
Mm.
and they can have a diuretic effect, make you pee more.
Okay.
But their main claim to fame, really, seems to be their positive influence on digestion.
Digestion. How so?
Well, research suggests they can help neutralize stomach acid, so they raise the pH in the stomach. They might also potentially speed up the emptying of the stomach
Oh, interesting.
and even stimulate the release of certain digestive hormones.
So potentially good news for anyone who maybe experiences occasional indigestion or discomfort after eating?
Potentially, yes. The key takeaway seems to be may aid digestion.
Okay. Anything else for bicarbonate waters?
Well, there's also some intriguing research suggesting that the alkaline nature of these waters might help reduce bone resorption.
Bone resorption.
That's the body breaking down bone tissue, right?
Exactly. By creating a more alkaline internal environment, it might slow that process down. And some studies have even indicated benefits for cardiometabolic risk biomarkers.
Cardiometabolic risk biomarkers, that's a bit of a mouthful. What kind of things are we talking about?
Things like cholesterol and blood sugar levels.
Okay.
These studies have shown potential for reducing total cholesterol and LDL, the bad cholesterol and fasting glucose, while actually increasing HDL, the good cholesterol.
Wow. That's actually a pretty impressive list of potential benefits. Seems like they might offer a multi-pronged approach to supporting heart health, going beyond just hydration.
It is quite a list, and some research even indicates they might help reduce post-meal fat levels in the blood, that's lipemia, and lower levels of aldosterone, a hormone involved in blood pressure.
Fascinating. Okay, moving on to sulfate mineral waters. What's the story there? Over 200 milligel sulfate. Sulfate waters, especially those that are also rich in magnesium and sodium sulfate, have shown some real effectiveness for functional constipation.
Constipation.
Yes. They can help improve bowel movements and stool consistency. Makes things move along better.
Good to know.
Additionally, certain sulfate waters, specifically sulfate bicarbonate calcium magnesiac ones, appear to be beneficial for biliary tract disorders.
The bile system.
Yes, promoting the production of flow of bile. They have choleretic and cholagogue actions. And since sulfate itself is an important nutrient, these waters could even be a useful option for, say, pregnant women needing extra sulfate.
Interesting. It really sounds like these different combinations of minerals can target very different systems in the body. What about chloride mineral waters, also over 200 milligel?
Chloride waters might help stimulate movement peristalsis and secretion within the intestines.
Okay, more gut effects.
Yes, and they can also have that positive effect on bile secretion, similar to some sulfate waters. Then you have specific types like salt mineral waters, which are high in both sodium and chloride.
Right.
They're sometimes used in what's called hydropenic therapy, basically, drinking specific mineral-rich water therapeutically, often for gastrointestinal issues.
Okay.
And then there are also salt bromine iodine waters. These are known particularly for their anti-inflammatory properties and are used for various conditions, including gut problems, too.
So a bit more focused on the digestive system there as well, it seems. Now, calcium is something we all know is important. What about calcic mineral waters? Over 150 milligel calcium.
Absolutely crucial. We know calcium is vital for skeletal health, bones, and teeth, but it also plays key roles in our nervous system, circulatory system.
Pretty much everywhere.
Pretty much. Bicarbonate, calcium-rich waters specifically might also help maintain the body's alkaline balance, linking back to what we said about bicarbonates.
Right.
And some studies have found that drinking high-calcium mineral water can actually lower bone remodeling indices in postmenopausal women, especially those with low dietary calcium intake.
That's significant. It suggests the body is breaking down less bone when drinking this water. But is the calcium in mineral water actually absorbed well by the body, like compared to milk?
That's a great question, and the answer seems to be yes, quite well.
Yeah.
Meta-analyses have suggested that the bioavailability of calcium from mineral water is comparable to,
Comparable.
or potentially even better than what you get from dairy products.
Better than dairy. Wow. Are there any reasons why some people might still prefer getting their calcium from food sources then?
Oh, sure. Dietary sources like dairy often provide a broader range of other nutrients alongside the calcium, like vitamin D or protein.
True.
However, for those looking specifically for a low-calorie calcium boost, mineral water is a fantastic option. And studies have shown demonstrated benefits for bone mineral density,
Mhm.
particularly in the spine and the femur, from drinking calcium-rich water.
So, real measurable effects on bone density.
Yes. And the EFSA, that's the European Food Safety Agency, even recognizes calcium's importance for bone development and maintenance with an approved health claim.
Mhm.
So these calcium-rich waters could potentially be considered functional foods.
Functional foods, that's a strong endorsement. The key takeaway seems to be it's a bioavailable, low-calorie source of calcium, potentially great for bone health.
Exactly.
Okay, what about magnesiac mineral waters? Over 50 mg magnesium. Magnesium is another mineral people are often mindful of getting enough of.
Indeed. Magnesiac waters have been suggested for use in some obstetric and gynecologic conditions, though more research might be needed there.
Okay.
And as we mentioned when talking about sulfate waters, magnesium sulfate types are great for improving bowel function.
Right, the constipation link again.
Yes. And that specific combination, sulfate bicarbonate calcium magnesiac water, also seems to benefit the biliary tract. It helps the Oddi sphincter relax, which improves bile flow.
The Oddi sphincter controls bile flow.
Yes, from the bile duct and pancreatic duct into the intestine. So relaxing it helps things flow smoothly.
Got it.
And there's even a meta-analysis hinting at a possible link between high magnesium levels in drinking water and a reduced risk of coronary heart disease mortality in some European populations.
That's another potential cardiovascular benefit tied to a specific mineral water type.
Interesting. Now, fluorate mineral waters, over 1 mineral GL, we know fluoride is often added to tap water for dental health.
Right. And fluoride in mineral water can indeed help reduce tooth decay and also promote bone mineralization, particularly in children.
But there's a catch, right?
There is. It's crucial to keep consumption low, especially for young children. This is due to concerns about high fluoride intake, potentially leading to dental fluorosis, mottling of the teeth, or even skeletal fluorosis in extreme cases.
That's what's a balancing act.
Exactly. Health authorities like EFSA and the WHO have set upper intake limits for fluoride exposure from all sources. So it's a case of beneficial in small amounts, but needing to be mindful of overconsumption, especially with kids. Understood. What about ferrous mineral waters? I imagine those are linked to iron. Fe is iron.
Precisely. You mainly see two types, sulfate ferrous or ferric, and bicarbonate ferrous waters.
Okay.
The bicarbonate ferrous waters are particularly interesting because of their hemopoietic properties,
Amopoietic, meaning.
meaning they can help with blood cell formation. So they're indicated for iron deficiency anemia,
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
and they're often recommended for pregnant women who have higher iron needs. The iron in these waters also tends to be highly bioavailable.
Why is that?
It's thought to be partly due to the presence of other trace elements in the water that aid absorption.
Interesting synergy there.
Yes, and some research even suggests these ferrous waters might have therapeutic effects on chronic inflammation in the upper respiratory tract.
That's a less commonly known potential benefit, inflammation in the nose and throat.
Exactly. Still needs more research, but it's out there.
Okay. Finally, let's talk about sodium-rich mineral waters. Over 200 milligl sodium. We often hear about limiting sodium intake, especially for blood pressure.
That's a very valid concern, particularly when sodium is combined with chloride, as it is in typical table salt.
Right.
These high sodium waters, especially sodium chloride ones, are generally not recommended for people who already have cardiovascular disease or hypertension. Caution is advised.
Okay, so maybe avoid those if you have high blood pressure.
Generally, yes, or at least consult a doctor. However,
Right.
it's a bit more nuanced.
Oh,
Some initial findings suggest that bicarbonate sodium-rich water, so sodium paired with the carbonate, not chloride, might actually have potential benefits for CVD risk factors and insulin sensitivity, particularly in postmenopausal women.
so the partner ion matters. Bicarbonate versus chloride.
It seems it might. And there was even an animal study suggesting a possible protective role against metabolic syndrome for a specific hypersaline sodium-rich sparkling water.
Wow. So for someone who is generally healthy and active, is the sodium content in some of these waters something they should still be really concerned about? It sounds like it's not just a simple sodium is bad equation.
It really does seem to be a more nuanced picture. The overall mineral profile and the specific combinations, like sodium with bicarbonate versus sodium with a chloride, really seem to dictate the potential effects, both positive and negative.
Absolutely. And while we're exploring all these fascinating potential benefits, it's probably important to circle back just briefly to some of those initial concerns we mentioned about bottled water itself.
Yes, good point. The plasticizers and potential endocrine disruptors.
What does the research generally say about that now?
Well, studies have looked into the potential release of chemicals like DEHP, which is a plasticizer, from PET bottles. This seems more likely under certain storage conditions, like prolonged exposure to heat or direct sunlight.
Okay, so don't leave your water bottle in a hot car all day.
Probably not ideal, no. And there's research on estrogenic activity compounds that mimic estrogen found in some bottled waters. Interestingly, this has been found not just in pee bottles, but sometimes also in water from glass bottles and even Tetra Pak cartons.
Really? Even glass?
Yes, although the levels can vary significantly between different brands and container types, it's complex. And to be fair, there's also evidence of potential estrogenic compounds leaching from the plastic pipes used in some tap water systems.
Ah, so it's not just a bottled water issue, potentially.
Potentially not exclusively, no.
Okay. And is there any sense if these concerns are significantly impacting overall water intake levels? Are people drinking less water because of it?
It's actually still unclear if these specific concerns are the main driver affecting water intake. What is interesting, though, is that populations in some Mediterranean countries, Italy, Spain, France, and also in the U.S., are often found to be below the generally recommended water intake levels.
So many of us just aren't drinking enough water in general.
That seems to be the case for many. And studies have also shown a correlation between higher socioeconomic status and increased water consumption.
That suggests maybe accessibility, cost, or even just awareness play a significant role.
It likely does. And perhaps most importantly, connecting back to diet quality. Research indicates a link between adequate water intake, especially intake of natural mineral water, and a higher overall quality diet.
How so?
People who drink more water, particularly mineral water in some studies, tend to eat more fruits and vegetables, fewer sweets, and generally have better micronutrient intake.
Huh. So staying well hydrated, maybe specifically with mineral water, might actually have a positive ripple effect on other healthy habits too.
It certainly appears that way. There seems to be a connection there.
Well, this has been a truly deep dive. It's really clear that natural mineral waters are far more complex than just, a simple way to hydrate.
Indeed. Their diverse mineral compositions, as we've explored today, can contribute to a really wide range of potential health effects. And this isn't just anecdotal. It's supported by a growing body of scientific research.
And the way these waters are classified, based on their specific mineral content, the bicarbonate, the calcium, the sulfate, that's really the key, isn't it? It helps us understand their potential benefits for various physiological functions and maybe even for certain pathological conditions.
Precisely. That classification system is crucial. And while we've covered a lot of ground today, it's also important to remember that ongoing research is constantly working to unravel the intricate biochemical mechanisms behind these health effects.
So there's still much more to learn.
Absolutely. Science is always evolving in this area.
So a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah.
As you're reaching for your next glass or maybe your next bottle of water, consider this. Knowing what you now know about the specific mineral content and the potential benefits we've discussed, what kind of natural mineral water might be most relevant for your own individual needs and health goals? It's definitely something interesting to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.